John Gibbons. I have got the tactics board, which means I'm joined by Josh Williams, who's relishing this in front. We did a couple of these in the summer, and they went down really well. So thanks for your kind comments, and it just shows if you're nice, then you get what you want in this world. Compliments will get you everywhere at the Anfield Wrap. And so here we go again. And I mean, thanks for coming in and doing this again, Josh, first of all.
No, it's sound. This is right up my street. But you've only put a tactics board in front of me once since I've been at the Anfield Wrap. So it's nice that I've made me second opportunity.
Well, here we are. We're going to do it. So we're going to do 2 or 3 of these videos that are going to come out on YouTube sort of over the next week or 2. But they're going to answer sort of questions that people are asking at the moment. And the first one we want to start is, how do Liverpool get more out of Florian Wirtz? So Florian Wirtz is one of the most talked about footballers in the country at the moment. Maybe not quite there. There's a few who are maybe struggling sort of elsewhere, who other fans will maybe argue are getting a little bit more attention. But certainly from a Liverpool point of view, he's probably one of the most talked about. Some positives and some negatives. Well, first of all, before we talk about how Liverpool are going to get more out of him, or how he's going to get more out of being a Liverpool shirt, what have you made of him so far?
I think he's been okay. I wouldn't really go much further than that. I think he's been a generally positive contributor, but I think we'd have potentially expected a little bit more just because of the price tag, probably, and the way he was bigged up initially. I was very, very high on him when we signed him. Very excited about what he can do, and I think he's the kind of player who doesn't need to score or assist to be a net positive for the team. And I think we've seen bits of that, but there's also been I think it's just been a hard start. I think it's been a really hard start fixture-wise. So I think we've seen the pros and cons so far, maybe. And obviously he's relatively slight as well, and he's only 22, so he can look a bit like a boy at times. But I think generally the noise is a bit loud. I think it's a bit overplayed. But has he been so far? I think the key question is, has he been so far exactly what we thought we were buying? And I'd say we've seen about like 60% of what we've bought in terms of potential, so there's still plenty to get at him.
Well, let's see how you think Liverpool might be able to do that. First of all, we've got the setup here. We've highlighted Josh's fantastic idea, Florian Wirtz in a different colour, because we're going to move him around a little bit. So he's in this yellow. You've set this up. You've put him really high. Is that higher than whoever was playing there last season, generally, supposedly?
Probably a little bit, yeah. I mean, when we did this show last, I thought he was going to play there, didn't I? Yeah. And that was because at the time Liverpool hadn't signed the striker. Ekitike was getting quoted hefty fees, and Isak was looking, hard to do basically. As soon as we started getting linked with the striker, I was like, right, it's going to be there then. Some people were chatting over here, not for me. So he's played as a 10 so far. I think it's been a different kind of 10 to what Szoboszlai was. I think Szoboszlai, it was a bit more of like a third eight, a third midfielder, like an advanced eight type vibe, where he's responsible for covering Salah quite a lot, responsible for covering Trent quite a lot. Would get into the box, but ultimately he was a bit more in touch with the other two. I think with Wirtz, we've maybe seen a bit more of that, where he's been a bit more of like a true 10. And because of that, he has done bits over here, roaming and things like that, but he's also been over here quite a lot as well. And we know he leans towards the left side of the pitch based on his time at Leverkusen. So there's been differences there with the ball. I would also throw in there that because we've signed flying fullbacks who kind of go at times, Wirtz has done a lot of this where he's helped them build up and stuff like that, which he can do. Good at receiving the ball with his back to pressure and stuff, but that means he's away from the final third, which some people have had a problem with. That could come into the why he hasn't had many goals and assists and stuff like that. So definitely a bit of a difference there when it comes to his usage on the ball. And then defensively, we've had to get used to, number one, Salah not getting as much cover with Szoboszlai here. But number two, Wirtz just roams quite a lot, more so than Szoboszlai did. So we might lose the ball and Wirtz will be there. Whereas last season, Szoboszlai was never there when we lost the ball. He was always kind of like, in touch with the situation. He was always in touch with Salah and Trent, crucially. So there's been lots of little subtle differences. I don't think it's anything too major. I don't think it's anything that we need to worry about or anything like that. But this is the kind of shift. And on top of that as well, he's not the only new player. Do you know what I mean? We've had to get used to Kirkes, we're getting used to Frimpong, we're getting used to Ekitike as well. So there's a lot of change in there. You know, probably too much change for one summer, but I don't think anyone's complaining for the players that we've bought.
So the burning question is, how do we get more out of him then? Is it getting him working in more combinations? Is it getting people closer to him? You know, I mean, if you look at that, first of all, I mean, this is just sort of a snapshot of how it's ended up, but, you know, I mean, Salah looks very isolated there, sort of Gakpo, but Salah being isolated is something that we've seen quite a lot. So, you know, do we want more of this? Do we want more of this? You know, what is it that you feel that we want to be seeing? You know, is it someone sort of advancing more from here? Although I've seen people saying that it looks like McAllister and Wirtz are getting in each other's way. I haven't necessarily seen that myself, but you know, what do you think we could subtly change in terms of position or what we've been asked the players to do, where we're just seeing him being a bit more busy, if you like?
Yeah, I don't think there's a great deal that we need to change, you know, I really don't. I think when I think about it, the way in which he's been used so far is roughly how I expected him to be used and how he kind of should be used. I think if there's anything, maybe he's doing the build-up stuff a bit much. And maybe you want him a bit more in touch with the final third, a bit more in touch with a Mo Salah and a Gakpo and an Ekitike or an Isak or whoever. I think a lot of his touches so far in the data and stuff like that is in this half of the pitch. And if you're going to maximise what he's good at, you want him in kind of like these areas sort of thing. On top of that as well, I think he does lean towards the left, and we've seen him on the right at times. But I'm not quite sure how you fix that, because Ekitike and Isak both like this kind of left channel. So if he's just permanently kind of over there floating, and the McAllister thing that you just mentioned, maybe there is an element of like, you know, he'll get in the way sort of thing. So I remember describing him to you as a swimmer, and I think he needs to be granted that freedom to kind of just float and get involved and stuff like that. But how you get more out of him, I mean, I think it depends as well what you mean by more, because the link play and the touches around the box and the creativity, maybe, I think it's been there in bits. I think the one thing that maybe we haven't got yet that we expected is probably just the goals and assists. I think that's probably where the criticism comes from. You know, he gets double figures in both departments. Yeah. The past 2 seasons in the Bundesliga, he hasn't got any yet. So it's how you start getting them, and the easy answer to that is getting them higher. But the games we've had so far, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Arsenal, and then even Burnley, I thought Burnley would be the game where like, right, we've got all the ball, we can play with Wirtz, we're playing higher up and stuff like that, but I expected Burnley to play a bit more. I think that was the problem. Burnley were like literally classic Mourinho, like back five, midfield 4, just didn't move for the whole game. I think he showed shades, you know, combining over here, and you know, we did a few unpredictable things over there, didn't he? Where, like, you know, you're a bit like, well, didn't expect that. By the way, all 3 of his shots, I think, in the game came from over here, and all 3 of his chances created came from over here. So again, he does prefer over there, but you've got the Isak Ekitike thing that I've just mentioned, where a little bit of it almost forces him over here a little bit, and over here he's just a bit less natural when it comes to the angles that he's working with and stuff. But yeah, it's a tricky one, to be honest, because I don't think there's too much to. I don't think you need to overthink it too much. You know what I mean? But you do obviously want more goals and assists from him.
Do you think Isaac might help him? You know, so if Isaac sort of comes in here, because I've seen some people say that they're actually very similar players when you look at the profiles. If you like, you look at the wagon wheels or whatever you're talking, they match quite closely, but from the eye test, you know, from when I've watched, and I haven't watched Isaac obviously in a Liverpool shirt, yeah, none of us have, but from the eye test looking at Isaac, he does look like his movement is a little bit different. So do you think that movement might unlock, you know, some of these assists?
It's a difficult one. I think my unbiased answer is I think they might clash a bit. I don't want them to. And I think if you're Florian Wirtz, if you're thinking of someone, who do I want to feed here in this league? I mean, Isak's a great player to feed because he's going to get you loads of assists because he will convert the chances that you're providing for him. But going back to what I've just said before, if you think of where Isak likes to play, you know, it's left-sided. He does drop deeper at times. He does drift over to the wing at times and drive towards the box. That's what Wirtz does.
Yeah.
you know, Wirtz does a lot of that. So I can see them potentially clashing a little bit. I think generally speaking, when you've got a 10 like Wirtz, the easy player to combine him with is someone like Haaland or someone like Vardy, who are going to run that way. And then as a result of that, it creates space for the 10 to just do his thing, basically. Whereas if you've got someone like, let's say, Firmino, he's getting in the way a little bit then, and you're a bit like, this is my area, mate, can you please move? Isak has got bits of that about him where he can drop deeper and stuff like that. It just depends on how well they work in tandem as a pair. Because when Isak drops, it's going to be here rather than here. So I think the overall thing that I'm getting at, I suppose the one, I don't know if it's a problem, but the one thing that Wirtz is getting accustomed to that he's not overly used to is leaning towards the right side of the pitch as opposed to the left. Depends how much of a problem you deem that to be. I mean, if you look at his assist map last season and the chances that he creates over the course of the campaign, he does create from everywhere. So I don't think he's too limited by that. But, you know, when a player just looks natural over there, he does, and there's some players in his way. But so Isak will obviously convert the chances that he creates, obviously, and he'll benefit the team with the crosses as well because he's good in the air. So you've got Kerkers benefiting from that, you've got Frimpong over here. But in open play, when it comes to standing on people's feet, I'm curious to see how that one works. Like, I think you've signed two players who are just boss, and we just want them to.
Yeah, and we're all just hoping. It will be very interesting. It will be. I'd be fascinated to know what the manager said to him, because quite a few of the players have said, "Oh, the manager spoke to me," and I was really excited about what he'd say, and I'd love to know like what he said to him.
I have a bit of a theory that, like, I think going into the summer, I don't think Liverpool thought they were genuinely going to land both, and I think it's happened where both have been like, yeah, sound, and they've went, okay,
I'm gonna have to do it now.
Let's just do it then, yeah. But I think Liverpool have kind of put their eggs in both baskets, and oh shit, we've got both here. They're both brilliant, and there's, I suppose you could say there is a need for both. But in terms of like tactical harmony or whatever you want to call it, where every player, like one thing I always talk about this, but one thing I loved with the OG Mane, Salah, Firmino thing, can we have the red cancel, just so that we're not confusing people, was the way in which it just worked, like without any instructions. So if you just put Firmino on a pitch, he would naturally do that. Salah would naturally do that, and Mane would naturally do that, and that's just perfect because they're all doing it naturally anyway. You got Trent going like that; he would have done that anyway. Robertson would have done that anyway, and then your midfield three were always going to be really disciplined and putting loads of tackles in and all that. So as a system, it just kind of worked. I always go back to Rodgers with Leicester as well, another example. So he had Jamie Vardy up front, so Vardy goes like that and takes defenders with him. He had Maddison and Tielemans there, ideal for occupying the space that Vardy had created. And he had the spider that is Ndidi behind them, just sweeping up everything. So again, as a unit, you don't need to give them any instructions. It just works as a thing. So one slight concern I have with Liverpool at the moment is it's not quite that.
Yeah.
There's a bit of like, you know, players have got to think. players have got to, you know, not get in each other's way, basically, and that takes a bit of time usually to work on that.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because if you create a goal from 2019 and replace all the players with counters and played it out, you'd be able to say who each one was.
Yeah.
You'd be able to say, right, that's Robbo, that's Henderson, or whatever it was, just by what they did. You wouldn't even have to see them. Whereas now, that'd be a little bit harder to do.
Well, another example, a player who's been in the news lately, or a former player who's been in the news lately, is Michael Owen, for obvious reasons.
Well, he's putting himself there.
yeah. Some great shouts, by the way. But yeah, if you think of who he plays alongside, say, for example, Emil Heskey comes to mind for me, again, it just kind of works as a two. Heskey's going to come to the ball, he's going to do the aerial stuff, he's going to do the flick-ons, Owen's going to run in behind. Same with Bergkamp and Henry. Usually, when it comes to your possessions stuff when you're on the ball, you just want players to naturally complement each other. And I think Liverpool have got some weird stuff going on with that. Like there's a thing at the moment, isn't it, with Salah, where he's not really getting the ball as much. and it's coincided with Trent no longer being in the team, finding him. And so you've got like Ekitike favours the left, Wirtz favours the left, you've got Gakpo over there. And it's kind of looked a little bit like Salah's just kind of there. Have you seen the Will Smith meme? In on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when he's just kind of stood on his own. That's a little bit like Mo Salah over here, so stuff to work on, like.
Stuff to work on. Just Vardy, before we finish, just to get throw him in there. A few people saying that after that, you're not having it. I'm not.
I think it will happen a bit at times, but I really don't want it to happen. I think one of the problems we've got is we've kind of got 4 midfielders that you can't really bench without it being a story. So Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, McAllister and Wirtz all want like that. So I think one of the ways, when everyone's fit and firing, one of the ways in which he might look to get them in the team will be by just playing Wirtz there, probably Szoboszlai there. The way he's doing it at the moment is by playing Szoboszlai at right back. I don't know how happy Szoboszlai is about that, but that I don't think that can persist for much longer when you've got like Bradley and Frimpong wanting minutes. So,
well, Bradley looked better than him when he came on against against Burnley because it's his position. That's not a slight.
And against Burnley, I don't think you needed, a full back like that really. I think against a block like that, you would have benefited more from overlaps and stuff like a Frimpong. So there'll be games where he's useful, like against Arsenal maybe, but not every week. So I do think we'll see it. I don't think it's completely out of the question, but if that's a permanent spot for him, I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it's very indicative of a good process either. If he ends up there, that will tell me that, like, right, Liverpool didn't really know what they were doing here a little bit.
Well, he's not a £150 million winger.
No.
So if you're going to spend £150 million on a winger, it would be him. Okay, that's been the Florian Wirtz chat. Hope you like that. More of this soon.